On Blues Radio International, Jesse and Audrey continuing our viral, antiviral world tour with a return to a place that anyone who loves the blues needs to return to. Lovely Memphis, Tennessee, for our friend Jeff Jensen. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, y'all. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Aw, thank you for coming on, Jeff.
It's a real honor. So tell us what's going on. You're a new dad. That's got to be the number one most important thing happening.
Definitely. Brand new dad for the first time that I know of. I mean, I've toured a lot, but as of now, it's the first time that I know of, so that's really good. That's exciting, and what an insane time to, one, become a new parent, and two, for a new human being to be brought in the world at all. It started, my baby was born April 7th, and most of the shutdowns started mid-March. So when we went into labor, the hospitals were completely shut down, as they still are today, of course. But they were totally shut down, no visitors. We were even on the fence of if dads were allowed in the delivery room. I just was able to get in and barely. And so the whole time we're in the hospital, no one's allowed to visit at all, like absolutely nobody. And for a first-time parent, like, it's one hand, it was kind of special because it was just more or less the three of us and some nurses, which was kind of special. But on the other hand, it's really overwhelming. No, we're in there for days. Nobody can bring us food. Nobody can come over and say hi. Like, it was really very, very fascinating. And then we have this new baby book where the first page was, this is a list of everyone that came to visit us in the hospital, and it's an entire page dedicated to those names, and we have none. Like, wow. Like, when else in history has this happened? It's so surreal.
Well, it's like all the people that like called you. You'll have to substitute. Like, they called and they called and they called. You know. I mean,
that's cute, and I understand what you mean. But it's 2020. Nobody calls. They texted.
It's true. That's true. You know, we kick it old school over here at BRI.
Yeah.
We like to, call people. It's weird.
Yeah, but good for you. I appreciate that. Yeah, these are all the Facebook messages we received. These are the Facebook comments, and we got 49 texts.
Yeah. Well, it's still very, very special, and it's got to be, as a creative person, obviously becoming a parent is a life-changing event. What is that doing to you creatively, and how do you see your musical career and the music you've made and the music you're going to make in light of this?
I feel like if I had a baby in any other era of time, that would be an easier question to answer. But right now, I feel like everything in the entire world is so overwhelming right now that it's hard to singularly process the significance and the impact of that one event. Because now I'm looking at, okay, how is my career going to change because I'm a father? Hold on. When is my career going to be able to pick back up? Because currently I'm furloughed from my entire industry, as most of us are. So now I have this weird dichotomy of two competing life events right now. Okay, I'm a father. How's that going to impact my life? Hold on. My career that I've been harvesting and growing and nurturing for almost 2 decades is now on the fringes because of coronavirus shutdown. So how does that come back? How does that come back in its entirety? So, and then in terms of the inspirational part, I just talked to an artist yesterday that told me, man, I've written a whole entire album about this already. A lot of artists, Mike Zito actually released a whole album about this already. I really admire those artists that are able to write to that capacity. At this particular point, on a personal note, I feel like everything is so overwhelming. I'm like on hold on writing. I'm just like hold on. Like, I have a crying baby. I need to learn how to be a dad for the first time. I don't know when I can start working again. It's all just so overwhelming that for me personally, it's been a little bit of a creative furlough as well. And I know that there's going to be a point sooner than later where that combination of emotions comes flooding out. And then I'm going to be the guy that writes my next album in 6 hours. There's everything I just went through for 6 months. Here it is. It's all right here. But right now it's like, man, a lot of us are stoically trying to just keep it together. And like there's so much emotion right now in the world with all of the events that it's I feel like my number one prerogative today is just appropriately keeping it together, just being a reasonable person. Don't freak out about our industry. Don't freak out about politics. Don't freak out about being a new dad. Keep it together. Literally take it one day at a time and see where it goes.
Yeah. I'd make another observation. I suspect that even though we wouldn't acknowledge it as a process, you're in the mode of collecting a tremendous amount of material for that writing. By the time that creative thing hits, you're going to have such a wealth of information, ideas, perspectives that none of us ever had before. It's going to be very beautiful.
Thank you. I hope it comes out like that. It might come out as some weird experimental jazz type album where the chord changes are so like the music actually represents today's times, and it's so out and so not processable, just like today is, that everyone's going to listen to this music and be like, man, this is crazy. What is this? And I'm going to say, did you live through 2020? Because that's what this is. This is the soundtrack for 2020. Of course you don't understand it. Nobody did.
Yeah, it's like a cacophony for 2020, Yeah.
Not a bad concept, but that may be where we're headed. So what's it like, though, as a band leader as well? Because you normally have a very vigorous schedule, and you're responsible for more than yourself. You're responsible for your family, and you have another family as well.
Yeah.
How is that?
It's to me personally, it's actually really devastating. I love my band. I've had very, very loyal musicians. We've worked together for years and years and years. And to be able to, I have no reasonable means to subsidize them or take care of them at this point. And that's awful, because it ends up being a furlough. A lot of the band leaders have been forced to essentially furlough the band, Oh, no one's fired. As soon as we get work, you'll come back. But in the meantime, it could be 3 months, 6 months. It could be a year. I can't pay you. So I hope you're still there when we're ready to get back to it. That's a really hard thing to process, especially when you've had guys that are so loyal to you. I respect my musicians, and not just my musicians either. The business team I work with, my graphic designers, my web folks, my social media people, my managers, my tour managers. These people are like family to me completely. And to not be able to take care of them really hurts. And who knows, like when we actually get back to work, I predict there's going to be a big shuffling of bands, not out of animosity, but just out of necessity. There's going to be some guys that don't make it out of this a professional musician. They end up doing something else, and that sucks. But what are you going to do? A lot of us have mortgages and families to feed, so I'm trying to be as emotionally supportive to my guys. I have a good relationship with them. I speak to them almost every day, either on the phone or through text or some means. And I mean, we're really close, but it's definitely difficult for all of us. But for the band leaders like me, and I know a lot of them that really, really care about their musicians, and that this just sucks. It just hurts to not be able to take care of your family musically or through marriage and blood. It's a tough thing.
And I know that, the world is starting to kind of phase out, and open up a little bit. Have you had any word as to when you might be going back onto the road or even playing any shows?
That is such a complicated question. And first of all, what I don't appreciate is people that are speaking as if they really know what's about to happen. And the folks that speak with that level of certainty are either spreading false hope or they're spreading false doomsday scenarios, because I don't feel like we really, really know. So everything I'm saying on this is kind of pure speculation and I'm open to change my mind. Like, this isn't an opinion. This is just kind of like what I see happening. But there's multiple facets to being a professional musician, and most of the blues musicians make their living actually touring, going from different city to city and playing events like that. Then there is a kind of very small localized like kind of the local band economies. The local economies are starting to open up little by little by little. But those local economies opening up don't support touring musicians. They don't pay touring wages. They don't pay the touring accommodations. So the real question is going to be, I think some bands are going to start playing on a local level. Okay, that might be better than nothing, except what's the pay scale going to be? Because if the venues are at 50% capacity, and if there's 50% of the people showing up, you could assume there's going to be 50% of the merch sales, more or less. So when is it actually going to be a viable career again? And that's going to be, I don't know. That's a little tricky. Also, the way that most of us book tours is we book on what we call an anchor date. You book that big festival in, say, New York that pays a lot of money. And, I'm in Memphis, so maybe I go from Memphis to St. Louis to Indianapolis, and I start making my way to this big festival. And every one of those club dates, as a band leader, hopefully I break even. I make a little bit of money. We do okay. Then we hit the big festival that essentially subsidizes the smaller club dates. Okay, now if you take all of those big payday festivals and anchor dates away, now you're asking the tour industry to come back based on 50% capacity clubs. That's not sustainable. And that's just truth. And I know I'm kind of known as like an optimistic dude, and I've talked to some musicians like this, and they're like, Jeff, what's wrong? I called you for like a good opinion on this. And I'm like, I'm not meaning to be negative. I'm just saying we have to also be realistic. And if it's not profitable or sustainable, then we're not going to be able to do it. I can't drive. My last tour I did, we drove 5,400 miles in a single tour. And, so even at reasonable gas prices, that's still an enormous amount of money in a tour van with a trailer, So you start doing the math on it, we certainly can't. My heart goes out to the venues. And so this is where we have a problem, right? You can't get mad at a venue if they're forced to pay a smaller fee because they have a cap on how many people they can have there. I get that. But on the same time, you also can't have musicians driving 5,400 miles on a tour to play only club dates at 50% pay. Like we're done. Like we're literally going to go out of business, and we can't feed our families on that. So we have a little bit of a predicament where nobody knows. And the worst prediction currently is October of 2021. So we still have big events canceling to this point. So it's not like we've stabilized to the point that even the cancellations are done. Maybe we can get back to work in October. And you think about that, Blues Cruise is a very important example of this. The bands that are playing the Blues Cruise, a lot of them tour into Florida to board the Blues Cruise, and then they tour from Florida to wherever they're from, right? Well, if you lose the Blues Cruise, you probably can't afford to even do that tour if the club dates are still on your books. And then what do you do with that week off that you had the Blues Cruise? So you might be looking at those bands being forced to cancel those entire tours. How is it going to be sustainable to even try to do that? So we're in a little bit of a mess right now, and not to sound like, a pessimistic dude, because I'm really not. I'm just trying to be realistic about it. I don't know when are we going to get back to work? The answer is I don't know. But to be completely honest, it doesn't feel like 2020 is looking very good. I've received a couple interesting offers. I don't want to say where because this is kind of on the table, but we're starting to negotiate a gig for kind of a drive-in type concert, which sounds really, really fun. And the money they're offering is very, very respectable. However, it's literally 1,200 miles each way. So even if the money, so again, if we were in a normal economy, a tour economy, that is, and if the venues were open like normal, this offer would be a no-brainer. It's a great offer. But I would also have 1 or 2 or 3 club dates on the way up, 1 or 2 or 3 club dates on the way home. It would end up being a 1 to 3 week deal that we would build a tour around. It would be beautiful, profitable, and awesome. But if we don't know about the club date options, then even a really good performance fee, 2,400 miles round trip, ends up being not in any capacity sustainable. It's not possible to do. So that's weird. What do you do, man? What are we doing, Jesse?
And have you had any other like creative ideas? Did you have you always played music, or did you have a vocation before you started to become a touring musician?
I've pretty much, the most successful career I've had in my life has been music based, for sure. I started playing blues on a semi-professional kind of local level 16 years ago. And I was relatively young. So, yeah, I mean, I've had some retail jobs, working in music stores and some fun stuff like that, which I love doing. It was awesome. But I've been super blessed. The hardest I've ever worked in my life has been on my music career. And the most, the highest salary I've ever made in my life has been based on my music career. So I'm not one of those guys that's lucky enough to be a secret computer programmer that can go to my office and computer program all day while this is happening. It's like, wait a minute, I've been producing records and touring for the last 16 years. That's what I do. Like, what am I going to do? So that's a little tough. And there are some guys, I know some musicians out there that are kind of blessed to have a secondary career. And right now, that's the time that's like, good for you guys. Like, good for you guys. Hats off. I admire all of the musicians out there that have been professional musicians, that have had the guts to set their ego aside, take a deep breath and say, I need to support my family right now. I'm taking a second job or second career until this passes. I know several of them, and I admire those guys fully. Good for them. Good for them. But
yeah, I think that there is actually a reason for some hope here, just because you and I talk optimistically. I'm going to turn it in this direction for a minute. We found an amazing resilience since the lockdown with so many things, just like with your experience at the hospital. No one was prepared to have people give birth in a hospital with a worldwide pandemic. No one was prepared for a lot of this. No one was prepared. Audrey and I weren't prepared to be visiting with you in Memphis the way we are right now.
Right.
I think that there is a hunger for live music and a need for live music that is so great that we're going to find a way to do it. And it may result in much higher ticket prices, which would be a shame in terms of preventing some people from being able to afford the tickets. But I think that will be an anchor for other mechanisms to provide it more broadly. And I'm really hopeful that we're going to come up with a mechanism to make a really robust and economically viable in-person experience, combined with an outreach to the world and allowing people who never had a chance to see this live music to actually participate in it in a way that they never have. And I understand I don't have a direct roadmap to get there. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but I believe that we're not going to give up on hearing live music or on the musicians who've carried us through so much in our lives. I don't intend to.
I appreciate that, and I certainly hope that you're right, and I hope that there are I hope that there are a lot of thinkers, you and me and a bunch of other people out there, that are genuinely trying to think about how to create a roadmap to something like that. The big question, though, I have no doubt that at some point this will pass. I have no doubt. The big question that I have is when, because if this all passes by fall, then some of us can take a big deep breath, tighten our budgets, and weather the storm. But if this is a year and a half from now, then I mean, even the most fiscal conservative people I know don't have a year and a half emergency fund that they can actually be unemployed for that duration of time and not be homeless. So now you're going to have a big shift in what musicians do. So it really depends on when do we start getting to that, and when, and also are musicians going to have to start rethinking? Are they going to have to start rethinking how they make a living? The other big problem is this is, and I don't want to say this. I hesitate to even say this because, again, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but this is actually a good opportunity to speak honestly about our entire industry. And one thing that this is, there was parts of our industry that were already slightly on life support and already needed some help. And there was a massive amount of artists that are already struggling because their business plan and their budgets included ample CD sales. And as CD sales were drastically declining, they weren't figuring out a way to subsidize that loss in any capacity. So what this could do in a positive, but it's going to be a little rough, is it might force a lot of people to completely recalibrate the way they play music for a living. So I'm not saying you can't play music for a living, but maybe you need to figure out how to play music without touring as rigorously as you were, and maybe without the actual CD sales that you had before. You know, the whole, if we like it or not, the blues audience is so generous, and I love them for this. They still buy CDs, and a lot of them don't even listen to CDs. They tell me this, but they buy CDs to support the artist. They say, I want to support the artist. I know this is how you make a living. I appreciate it. That's super beautiful. But as time continues to go on, the entire world, thank you to Spotify and some of these other things, has decided that music itself doesn't really have a value. Like, everyone's expecting it for free at this point, especially ask people under the age of 24. Well, that needs to be addressed directly, and it can't be addressed with the, I don't like that, it's not fair. Because that's not a solution, and we can say that all we want, and I agree that it's kind of not fair. I don't want, we spend tens of thousands of dollars to produce a record. It would be really nice if we could at least recuperate that money and then make enough money to make the next record so we can continue to make a living and come out with quality music. But so I think if we're smart about this, as painful as this might be, this could be a good opportunity for a lot of the smart-minded, business-minded industry people to almost get together and say, okay, we need to figure out how to get past this coronavirus, but let's also possibly mend some of the other philosophical flaws that are now outdated in the way that we run our businesses. If we could figure out those problems, then Jesse's 1,000% right. We can come back stronger than ever. Live music can be significant, and you'll still see professional musicians. If we don't address other problems as well, then we're only solving the singular problem that coronavirus brought in, and we're not addressing that there may be some other philosophical problems within our industry as well.
I think you're right, and we're going to figure out how to get through this one way or the other. And the best way we'll do it probably is with the beautiful music that you've already shared with the world. And we appreciate your sharing some of that with us today.
Thank you.
Febreze, my city, to hide the decay of what it once was before it passed away. We're living in a shadow of what we used to be. I went to Detroit, nobody was home. Just a whole lot of rust where there used to be chrome. We're living in a shadow of what we used to be. A hexagon case with an octagon top. Atlanta won't use a Memphis barber shop. Living in the shadow of what we used to be. Well, let's put all of these crooks in jail. I don't care if they're too big, too fair. Blinded by opinions on the news. You gamble with these con men, you always lose. Let's clean up these bandos and find some buyers and fix these roads before they wreck my tires. We're living in a shadow of what we used to be. Well, I guess our focus is all out of structure is flawed when the foundation's cracked. We're living in a shadow of what we used to be. Let me tell you though. But don't worry, I'll give you some hope. All we need is direction and a whole lot of soap. Then we can get back to what we used to be. Then we can get back to what we used to be. Then we can get back to what we used to be. We're gonna be just fine, y'all. The song's called Ash and Bone. Outside a southern city, there's an old state park. When it's humid and raining, you get lost in the dark, in the dark, in the dark. Sweet magnolias, how you used to smile. I've got that picture in my mind. I can see it for miles and miles and miles. On the back of my lids, you'll find my canvas there. Sometimes I lose focus and I'm forced to stare and stare and stare. Even the bears will lose, and the birds still sing, and melted metal can form a brand new ring. It's all the same, it's all the same. So when I retire to the great unknown, my memory falters when I'm ash and bone, ash and bone, ash and bone. When I'm ash and bone, when I'm ash and bone. Thank you. Song's called 2,000 Days. Russian roulette with an ACP. He won't live, the doctors all agree. Surgery went well, but he lost his sight. The wounds never close, but the stitches are tight. Scars from a battle lost long ago. It always ends cold with a tag on your toe. A pile of apologies left unsaid. The man is a living, but his soul is dead. The world seems clear now, the spirits are gone. Poison minds are so withdrawn. Better hide the dog just because I'm 2,000 days better than I once was. The fire is raging as it burns down the land. Wooden houses fall as the pyramids stand. Pixelated fears in the palm of your hand. Pick up the glass where there used to be sands. Distill the future at the edge of despair. Our assets are gone, there's nothing to declare. Grab the paddle and make the escape, but the river dammed up, it's a little too late. The world seems clear now, the spirits are gone. Poison minds are so withdrawn. Yeah, unsheath the sword and kill the buzz. I'm 2,000 days better than I once was. 2,000 days. 2,000 days. Knowledge or power, tell me what is greater. Shoot from the hip and ask the questions later. When our eyes are closed, we all walking blind. You might hate the label, but you're still defined. The world seems clear now, the spirits are gone. Poison minds are so withdrawn. Of courage does what it does. I'm 2,000 days better than I once was. 2,000 days. 2,000 days. 2,000. This next song I wrote several years ago. It's become one of my most popular tunes, which I really appreciate because it means a lot to me. It's written kind of about generational poverty, really, kind of the struggle that some people get into when
you're trying to get by, but you're doing the same things all the time, and it gets hard to get out of it. $10 smokes and $5 fools. I'd fix what I broke, but I lost all my tools. They run down the staff, they run down the mules. They pass all the laws and then they break all the rules. I'll ask them some questions, but they won't take my calls. It's hard to stand for something, you can't stand it all. But I'm a hard-working man, I work all my life. I got nothing to show except kids and a wife. As for the future and retirement, boy, we're gonna be living off the government. I'd ask them some questions, but they won't take my calls. It's hard to stand for something, you can't stand it all. With a payday lender by the interstate, the one with the weekly interest rate. They mortgage my house, I mortgage my car, but that kind of money doesn't get very far. I'd ask them some questions, but they won't take my calls. It's hard to stand for something, you can't stand it all. Yeah. The folks downtown, they gave me the phone, but my umbrella broke. I couldn't weather the storm. Empty bottles and my ashtrays full. I met the bus, I couldn't pay the toll. I'd ask them some questions, but they won't take my calls. It's hard to stand for something, you can't stand it all. It's hard to stand for something, you can't stand it all. It's hard to stand for something, oh man. It's hard to stand for something when you can't stand it all. Thank you. Thank you, Blues Radio International. I love y'all.
No, I think that Jeff has some very poignant points on the situation, and it is a very difficult puzzle to figure out. I mean, you know, we know what we could do to make it better, but we can't do it right now. And so we're all kind of stuck hitting this wall, you know, like we can come up with as many ideas as we want, but if we can't execute them, then what do we do? So the alternatives are the only option right now, but figuring out what they are is the next challenge. And so I wish that I had more to offer in that way. But, again, without bringing crowds together, without bringing people together and increasing the amount of people that can go into a club or a festival, I mean, I think we're kind of stuck in this virtual realm right now.
But a lot of these places, you're absolutely right, Jeff, we're teetering on the edge already. I mean, they were literally, breaking even on a good week, and then every once in a while they'd have a hit. But I mean, it's out of the love of the owners that these places continued. Well, the love of the owners isn't going to sustain it through this, as they have to pay their rent and do things like that. So I understand what you're saying, but we're going to come up with something. I just can't believe we're going to just turn off the lights and say that's it. I don't believe that's going to happen.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that the artists and the real music fans are going to let that happen. Having said that, I think we need to be honest that for the next year or so, it just might look different. And I think it might look different. My speculation as of now is it's going to look different, where you are going to see a continuing influx of artists sharing their music on online forums. And I think you're also going to have artists playing a little bit more localized and not touring as much when that starts opening up. And that, there could be something very healthy in that too, because if you have my friend Victor Wainwright comes to Florida a lot, and if Victor more or less can't come to Florida for a year and a half, man, when he finally gets back to Florida, I bet those shows are going to be bigger than ever. So there could be some kind of positive with that as well, as long as we don't allow the forced time off to put too many professional musicians out of business, because the nastiest thing that can happen is that this ends up forcing some of the best to explore other permanent options, and then they're not working anymore. And that sucks, man. Like there's some beautiful, wonderful artists out there right now that have been working very hard, touring around the country and the world, sharing their souls with people. And maybe they're making a lot of money, maybe they're struggling, but they're sharing something beautiful. And we need to encourage that, and we need to make sure that at least a majority of those folks make it through this. And I think we are. I think that the community is coming together. There's a lot of people talking about it, but talking about it honestly and not living in a delusion of only hope is going to help, because when we speak about it honestly and we say the truth, then we can actually address the problem. When people are saying, they're like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Okay. But let's also figure out how. Let's get together and let's figure out how we're going to do it. And I think there's a lot of conversations right now, and I think that's a beautiful thing, because that's how any progress and growth is made. It's by people speaking openly and honestly, and then finding the solution in the madness. And I'm seeing that more and more. And this Blues Radio International is doing a great job of doing that. I've watched your guys' program. I mean, the one thing I love about what you're doing too is you don't just have musicians. You had my attorney on not too long ago. You had Rick Booth on the other day. So you're speaking with actual, the business people in the industry, as well as other very significant experts on specific topics. And that is how we're going to learn and grow, not just listening to one singular facet of the population. Like, let's only ask bass players what they think about this. Hold on. We need other perspectives too here.
Absolutely. I think that, the opinions are valuable. And I think that, logistics is figuring out how we can get groups of people together, whether it be outside in a drive-in or in, taking a big piece of land and making a stage and setting it up in that way. I think that people will be more comfortable in these open air spaces way more than in an arena or a large club. And maybe that's a good start. It's a good starting place, even if they're makeshift, these pop-up things. I mean, who knows? It could be worth it to try it. Right. Yeah, there's some an artist here in Memphis named John Namath. He's doing front yard concerts. And the first time I saw him do it, I was thinking to myself, I was like, this is so silly. He set up a whole PA system in his driveway, and I'm just telling you the truth. I saw it and I was like, that's what I was doing when I was in junior high. I was like, come on, John Namath. Then I watched it,
and I listened. He got a crowd of Memphians. He got his neighbors to come outside and gather around and listen to his band. And then he did it again, and it grew. And he's playing songs, and people are clapping. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, this is so old school. It's absolutely brilliant. And talk about bringing music and arts back to your community. Like, I never, ever would have even considered. I would have considered it like a downgrade in my career to have to set up a little PA with speakers on a pole in my driveway and play for my neighbors. That's ridiculous. But to watch when John was doing that on Facebook Live, and I'm watching him bring his community together, I'm like, this is the most brilliant. This is brilliant. And I, he had a tip jar. I don't know if he made money off it. I hope he did. But more than making money off it, he actually did something that added art and culture directly to his neighborhood. And I think thinking outside the box like that is amazing. Could you imagine if every national touring blues artist started to do that in their own neighborhood, and the audience became literally the 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds to the 90-year-olds that live next door? That's beautiful, and that will literally bring people together. That's cool.
I spent a fair amount of time with Walter and Marie Trout, and they do that every New Year's Eve, and they're doing it more. They have a concert in their garage, and the neighborhood comes, and it is a neighborhood concert for the people around them. They've been doing that for years, and it's actually he'll tell you it's one of the best gigs he does all year.
Yeah.
And it's because of that. And it's not, this was at a time when he was touring the world and had many alternatives. It wasn't something that came up with COVID. I think it is a beautiful thing when people can give back like that.
Thank you guys for having me as well.
Of course, Jeff. It's nice to see you.
Thank you, Jeff, for joining us today
and
for playing this music for us and sharing what you do so well with a worldwide audience that really needs this music more than ever.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you, Jeff. It's
okay.
really great to see you.
We love you. Next time, your daughter has to be in the video, though.
Yes. And the dog. You got to bring the dog, too.
I got them out of the house, so it was calm. Do you know what a challenge that was?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. My older daughter has 5 kids, so yeah, it's a constant thing. But it can be with one too. I remember that feeling as well. It was like it was beautiful, but it was challenging at the same time to try to do business calls and stuff like that. But I think thankfully we're in this mode, and for however this unfolds, you'll always be able to tell your daughter that the world stopped in preparation for her arrival.
That's right.
That's pretty damn significant, right?
Yeah.
So how wonderful to get to spend this time with you, Jeff. Thank you. We love you.
Thank y'all. I love you guys too. You're awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. I love that smile, Jeff. Keep smiling, man.
Yes.
Thanks.
Smile through the tears, man.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you,
figure
Jeff.
Hey,
we
love you,
appreciate
Jeff.
you, and we love
Take
you.
care.
Love you too. Thank y'all.
Bye.
Bye.